But she married another meth addict who beat her, once actually fracturing her skull, almost killing her. She had 2 teenage children to live with relatives in the Midwest. She voluntarily gave them up because she couldn't care for them. But she kept on getting pulled back into the drug life, finally left the husband. She had prostituted herself with methamphetamine. She had been raped with methamphetamine. She had given up every semblance of a normal life because of this drug that her mother introduced her to. So the story now is, how could a mother do that to a child? But again, more generally, why are we ever doing things that aren't narrowly in our self-interest? Right? Why don't I pack up all the computers and mouses and stuff I stick in my pockets? Right? Why are we ever good to each other? And how does that goodness fail? So when I started thinking about these issues about 10 years ago, I thought, sort of the parlance of neuroscience, some distributed network of brain regions causes this behavior. Of course, that's true, right? Since your brain's working all the time on every problem that you're trying to solve, every task you're engaging in. But I really want to know if there was a concrete way to understand where this good behavior comes from. In particular, was there a specific neurochemical that we might trace down to these positive behaviors, both among our family members, but I think more generally in terms of complete strangers. So let me make it more personal. Look, all you nice folks here, very nice people, I can tell. A couple of you in the back, I'm not so sure about anyone else that's great. So, who in this room has ever screamed in anger at someone you care about? Yeah, what's the deal with that? You nice, wonderful people. So what I was looking for in the brain was that switch, right? So how does Teresa go from this wonderful person that we all love to raving maniac? And then back, right? What's that little chemical switch? Maybe there is one. So again, the applications of this, if you can find it, I think are enormous. Not just things like why stories transport us into other people's brains, but actually how we have structured society and how we can use this to improve our lives. So I'm going to do some experiments we've run, but I want to show you another short video of, I think, one of the more kind of crazy experiments that we've run, just to give you a flavor of what these experiments look like. And it'll run.
Most people plan to make their wedding special, but this wedding in southern England was a first for science. Nick and Linda invited researcher Paul Zak to take blood samples from them and their guests. It was a chance to find out what goes on in people's bodies during this momentous bonding event.
The value of this clinical study is that we have an actual real-life event. So this way we actually go in a very natural setting, a wedding with 100 people, some of which know each other, some of which do know each other.
13 people, including the bride and groom, had their blood drawn before and after the couple took their vows. Zak wanted to find out if there would be a rise in their oxytocin, a hormone associated with love, trust, and bonding.
We thought that we could observe this wedding ceremony before bonding with each other and actually producing oxytocin. The big oxytocin, we also measured a bunch of other hormones that were also associated with reproduction.
Zak found that the couple and close family members had more extreme changes in oxytocin.
Linda had the biggest spike in oxytocin, 28% increase in oxytocin before and after her vows. She was really beautiful mother. Who's next? The bride's mother. Of course, the bride's mother is very engaged emotionally. And then the groom's father. And then the groom. And further out are some of his random friends that were born.
Testosterone is linked to sex drive, and studies have found that drops when men fall in love. Zak expected this to happen at the wedding too, but results proved otherwise.
We also found that testosterone levels were flat for all the men who tested, except for the groom. So immediately after the vows, his testosterone levels doubled from before. Why is that? Because this beautiful woman wearing a gorgeous scarlet gown and is singing about motherhood.
According to Zak, the most important finding was that just being part of a wedding makes us release oxytocin. This may help explain why most people choose to have a wedding instead of eloping with their partner.
I think the ritual involved because we all have stake in sustaining the human race. Right through, you have a filters of people who are emotionally engaged with them, who care about the outcome. Okay, so just to summarize this kind of crazy experiment that these people come in to do. So the Wright group are both science reporters and they follow my research. And when they were getting married, they called me up and they said, hey, we thought we might do an experiment at our wedding. You think of anything fun to do? And, so this talk mostly about oxytocin, which I call the moral molecule. So let me summarize what we did on the wedding because it was a little bit hard to hear. So the bride, Linda, had the biggest rise in oxytocin. Then her mother had the second biggest, and then her father, then the groom, then family and friends. So sort of arrayed around the bride like planets around the sun. Right? The bride is the center of the wedding ceremony. So this ceremony seems like it is having a physiologic effect on us, which is probably why it survived. Right? So we need these rituals because they bring us together in community, and in particular, they bring us together to help this couple be successful biologically, which means you're going to reproduce. Why? Because my kids need someone to marry, and your kids need someone to marry, right? So we all want to invest some time and energy in making sure these people are successful too, and this ceremony apparently helps that happen, rather than eloping the babies. Now, how do I know? Never met these folks before. I mean, I went to their wedding, and taking blood is a fairly limited thing. And guess what? I was completely affected by the wedding myself. So much so that we become friends. I was just in England 2 months ago and had dinner with them, and now their little daughter, 2-year-old daughter, they have. The wife, Linda, is now pregnant with the second child. So we have a boy, I recommended they name it Paul, clearly. So, why do I even care about these people? I can't help but care about them. I share something very intimate with them, both their wedding, but also taking their blood and finding out what's going on inside them that morning. So all this work that you've seen now is, was preceded by lots of years and years in the laboratory. And 10 years ago, oxytocin was only known in human beings to do 2 things: to contract the uterus during birth, to push out the baby, and to start the flow of milk for women to breastfeed. And when I started thinking about, gee, what is that chemical messenger that says, Teresa's great and Ryan, sketchy guy who wants to stay away from him. Like, that's the only way we can live in New York City and around people strangers all the time, is that we have some quick and dirty mechanism that says, Teresa great, Ryan not so great. Right? Otherwise, you just can't figure out who to be around. So how does that system work? So one of my colleagues said, oh, oxytocin, that's just a reproductive hormone. That's like, it's just for women. It's not very important. Oh, it's for women, it's not important. I say, yeah, but men's brains make this too. There must be a reason why. Oh, so it's just like a residual thing on animals, they have But there was this emerging literature in animals suggesting that oxytocin not only facilitated care for offspring, the thing Lisa didn't get from her mother, but also for social living animals, allowed for toleration of burrow mates. Now I'm getting closer to these kind of good behaviors that we see among strangers and the humans. So, okay, good idea. Maybe this is targeted to look at with humans, except what? Hard to measure. It's a very shy little molecule. It can coast down the brain. It disappears very rapidly. It's fragile. So a lot of reasons why this wasn't really studied. And among those, there's no medical disorder associated with oxytocin, because at that time there wasn't. Now there's clinical trials going on for autism, schizophrenia, social anxiety, lots of other things, based on the basic research we did. Okay, so here's this little ancient mammalian molecule associated with the hallmarks of mammals, which is live birth and care for offspring. And now in humans, it seems to be, from our experiments, being released when complete strangers are nice to each other. So let me show you how we study at the lab in a very controlled way. Right? So the experiments, the little video you saw of the animation, all those are controlled laboratory experiments. The wedding experiment, not controlled, but it tells us that what we'll find in the laboratory reports out into the world that all of us live in. Okay, so we're doing a little experiment live here, right here at Doge. So here's the experiment. People on the left side of the room are going to be matched with someone on the right side of the room, randomly, don't know who you're matched to. And the people on the left side of the room, my left, you're all going to get $10. Okay? And your task is, you have to make an offer of that $10 to the person you're matched to. but you can't see that person, you can't talk to them, you do it one time. Now the trick is, if the person you're matched to doesn't like the offer, he or she can say no, and all the money's earned. If they say yes, then I'll pay it. So think about that for a minute. You match someone else in your laboratory, partition, computer stations, you get a secret number to match their identity. You're totally anonymous, and you match with someone who doesn't have money, and you've got money. So what do? Who'd offer $1? 2? About 3? About half. Who'd offer half? Okay, so half is the most common offer. And offers of half are always accepted, by the way. Okay? But what about the $1 offer? So economists have run this task many, many times at much larger stakes. It turns out that almost everybody in the entire planet, with just a couple exceptions that we've tested, will reject the $1 offer. And economists were really confused about that. So like, dude, money's good. Why should we take money? He said, you guys know the right answer, right? You've got 10, you got me 1. The hell with you. Because we're emotional creatures and we're social creatures. And that's a bad social behavior. Right? So economists are really concerned about why people would give up good money. So I have the opposite idea. What if I flip that task on its head and ask, if you're the first decision maker, why would you ever offer more than the other person thinks that you think they need to accept the offer? Why would you ever be generous? So it turns out, if I have you watch that 100-second video, the real video of the father talking about his son is dying from cancer, your oxytocin shoots up about 50%, and you're 80% more generous with transfers in that exact task to strangers in life. How do I know it really works? This is based on blood draw. So you watch get a blood draw, you watch this little video, 100 seconds of blood draw. That's how you feel when you make this decision. People are really generous. How do I know this is true? For sure. Because the beta-prostatosis has been around for 50 years. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1950 theory is given for synthesis. And this stuff is safe, about 10,000 women a day in North America get this to speed up birth. It's called Pitocin, the drink. So we actually can put this in a nasal inhaler, the FDA's approval, and shoot it into your brain safely. And sure enough, compared to people on placebo, I can increase substantially the amount of generosity in this offer. But it turns out, if that person doesn't have the veto power over your offer, oxytocin has no effect on how much you transfer. Unless you have to think about that person, then this chemical doesn't kick in. So what about that video we saw of the father and the son? Not the, but in the video, what happens? It's distressing. All right, I'm going to show you the real video, and I'm not going to show it to you. Why? Because the last time I showed it was at a law conference, and several lawyers actually cried watching it. And you know lawyers are not so. So this is really very powerful video. So it's distressing. It captures our attention. We can't look away because we can imagine how awful it is to think about someone you love dying, especially a child. It's the worst thing in the world. And so we're sucked into this story. At the same time, we have this empathic response, which correlates with the release of oxytocin. So it's distressing, so I pay attention to it. And now, I want to do something. But look how blunt this brain system is. Instead of saying, oh, I want to help little Ben. By the way, it's a true story. Ben has now died. I can't help little Ben. He's dead. Or he's gone. He's far away from me. So what do? I help the other humans. Why? Because that's the appropriate human behavior. And that's what it means to be a social creature, is I'm investing resources in all kinds of social relationships. So I think one of the triumphs of the human species is that because of this hyperactive oxytocin system, in which we care about complete strangers, we can also build relationships with those strangers and extract value from them. That value might be a cute guy or girl who's I'm going to marry. It could be friendships, it could be work colleagues. And so we've been able to have this very broad sense of connection to people around us, even people we'll never meet. Right? Donating money to disaster victims in Haiti or in Japan or wherever. Right? We do that regularly because we want to help. But why? We're giving up real resources we can spend on ourselves or our families. Because that's what the humans do to sustain themselves in a social group. So this cooperative, generous, compassionate behavior is not anomalous. It's a key part of what it means to be a human being. And it derives from us having a much larger mass of oxytocin receptors in the front of our brains that essentially make it feel good to do good. So in this frontal oxytocin system, when you activate it, you also get this reward response. Right? So it's rewarding us for caring for others. It's rewarding us for being compassionate. It's rewarding us for being moral. We don't need Sister Mary Joseph, the government, the cops, all that stuff to do. We have this internal mechanism that says, oh, right, when I do something right, his mind can be scouts at me, I get feedback. Oh, I guess the humans don't like it when I punch them in the face. Maybe I shouldn't do that all the time. And when I hug, God, I lost your name. Val, when I hug Val, sorry, when I hug Val, and she's happy, oh, the humans like that. Right? And if she's happy, then she tells other people, oh, yes, that he's all right. He's a nice guy. And what do I tell people? He's a jerk. Stay away from him. Push him in the nose. Right? Even if he deserved it, which he did. Right? So, okay, so why is this actionable? If I understand the underlying mechanism in the brain, then I can utilize that mechanism. I can utilize it when I develop stories, narratives, movies, commercials. I can utilize that mechanism to improve my life. I can use that mechanism to understand how society is organized. So I'm going to give you a couple more examples of that. So we've done, again, so many experiments now, 10 years worth plus, in the lab and in the field to really nail down not only what releases oxytocin, but what inhibits its release, what promotes its release. So I'll tell you a couple things you already know. Women who are ovulating, are you more emotional? Yeah. Why? Estrogen makes you more sensitive to oxytocin. Oh, the puppy died, TV show. The other thing you already know, really good oxytocin inhibitor, the favorite chemical of half the people in this room, testosterone. Who are the least empathic, caring people on the planet? Teenage boys, which is where I used to be, right? Oh, right, still. Right. So why do we know that? Because we do experiments in which we administer testosterone to men, have to do that same sharing the money task. And guess what? They are less generous towards strangers. And by the way, when you ask them how much they want from other people, they're more entitled. Yeah, I'm an alpha male, I deserve more money. Interestingly though, when people don't cooperate, mostly men, although sometimes women, get a big spike of testosterone and you want to punish those individuals. Right? So another way to sustain cooperation is, and what I talked about with Ryan, if I punch him in the nose, he said, oh, that guy's actually a jerk. And the other people around him start treating me badly, now being isolated. Right? As a social creature, it's not good to be isolated. Think about how we punish the worst people in society who misbehave, prisoners in jail. What do you do with them? You put them in solitary confinement. That's psychologically and physiologically stressful. People hallucinate. They need their voices, any voice. So we don't like being alone. So we're essentially a social creature, we're a herd creature. We want to be around other humans. And to do that, we need to invest resources to sustain those relationships. And we call those appropriate behaviors moral with a small n. I have no philosophical or theological agenda. It's those moral behaviors, it's appropriate social behaviors that signal to other people, yeah, this person's a cooperator, they're a clear dealer, they're a person I want to be around. So, by the way, Lisa, the prisoner, when she did this sharing the money task, immediately she said, oh, half. I usually write this down, and I said, wow, you answered really fast. How come you would give half? And she said, if you're a drug dealer and you cheat, you die. And this is why it's important to do experiments out of the lab, because undergraduates never say that. Talk to hundreds of them. Right? Whole different frameworks. By the way, we asked her, if you're the second decision maker, what's the smallest amount you would accept? She said 1 penny. I said, why? I'm homeless. Anybody's good. Again, different set of brain structures. And in fact, so let's go back to Lisa's mom. One of the ways to kill these oxytocin receptors in the front of your brain to make it feel good to do good, stimulants like that, like cocaine, burns out these receptors and you lose the ability to connect to others. So we've shown that in drug abusers, we've shown that in individuals who have social anxiety disorder, there's evidence for people with autism not having the system working properly. We can inhibit it through testosterone. Also, high stress will inhibit the release of oxytocin. It's You guys know that already. When you're stressed out, you're not your nicest self. And then you run to somebody, and then you have to go back the next day to your colleague or your spouse and go, gee, I was such a jerk yesterday. I was having a really bad day, and I'm sorry I yelled at you. And I need to repair that relationship. Or, so I think I'm getting to the actionable points of this, but I think understanding spring mechanism gives you a lot of power over this unconscious, evolutionarily old mechanism in your brain. In other words, you can harness this mechanism and actually improve your social relationships, improve your life, just by understanding how this ancient mechanism works. And the book is full of those kinds of suggestions. So I'm going to show you a couple more slides and then we can take questions. But one of the kind of big open questions is, okay, so you've done all the tenure for the studies in the laboratory here in America, or some in Western Europe. Is this really universal? Like, how do we really know it works for all the humans? By the way, it's 95% of humans. So 5% of the people, and the hundreds and hundreds of people I've taken blood from to measure the rates of oxytocin, don't get it. Of that 5%, about half of those are psychopaths. So psychopaths classically lack empathy, and that's exactly what people feel when the brains release oxytocin. So they don't feel empathy. Think of them as just like permanent survival mode. They will do anything they need to do to survive the next 2 hours. Take from you, steal, lie, cheat, and these individuals are dangerous. I recommend you avoid them. The other half are people who are really stressed out. Right? So I'm just having a bad day, my dog died, I got my car accident on the way to the lab, and those people are stressed, and they're going to get over that. They're going to get beyond that stress. So, but 95% of the people, everything's great. They understand that this is a safe interaction, even though it's by computer, it's not face-to-face, has the essence of a personal interaction, and therefore their brains release oxytocin, and they say, look, you play nice, I'll play nice too. What is that? That's the golden rule, which exists in every culture on the planet. There must be a reason why. They didn't all read the same great books. Right? They figured it out. Oh yeah, that's what we do. A mastermind is nice to me. So, is it universal? Right, let's try to figure that out. By the way, the nurturing part's very important as well. So, surprisingly, Lisa, the prisoner, did have this kind of insight that she wasn't able to care for her children, that she has these sort of impaired social behaviors. So we've done studies on repeatedly sexually abused women, and about half of them, the system shuts down. So the brain is the most expansive real estate in the body, and if some brain system's not made work, that tissue will be deployed to help the organism survive and reproduce some other way. And the same reason people who are born congenitally blind have enhanced other senses, because that visual area of the brain is not being used. Okay, that's not waste that. It's neurons. So, Lisa, the prisoner, seemed to have that. She's had this enough insight that, hey, what's best for my kids is not to be by me, certainly not to be around my husband. So, all right, so let me show you what we did. So, 2 summers ago, I was in Papua New Guinea. Anyone been pilots in Papua New Guinea? Okay, so one person in that, great. So this is essentially the most primitive place on the planet. These are indigenous people living in a rainforest. There are 800 distinct languages in Papua New Guinea, because these are little isolated tribes. So I got embedded in this little community of 1,000 people, and with lots of permissions and blah, 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 years of working this out, have permission to actually take blood before and after a tribal dance that they have done for thousands of years.
소금 마크야.
Oh, it's in Japanese. So I'll leave that with their Japanese feature. So I went with HKTV in Japan to do this. And this is my tribe. And I'll tell you in a minute why they're my tribe. But they live very far from any cities, so they are subsistence farmers. They grow crops, mostly broccoli and yams, nuts, mostly vegetarians. To buy a bride, you need to exchange pigs, so they have pigs, so that they don't eat them very often. Even in the capital city of Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, there's an ad for a savings bank, which I saw, and it says, why should you save? Vacation, new car, bride price. So even in the capital, you can buy a bride. So they showed this little medical hut in the field. It's a rainforest, it's muddy, it's dirty, and there's nobody water, there's no electricity, we bought a generator. And so, take bug these guys and use like an alcohol swab. I had to use 5 or 6 swabs just to get the skin. These guys, they don't shower, right? So there's no running water, there's rain. And then these guys have never been to a doctor or a dentist. They're all pretty healthy. Average age is around 70. Infant mortality is very high, highest cause of death. So what we found is that this ritual dance that you just saw indeed caused release of oxytocin in the majority of the men we tested. And for those men who released oxytocin, they reported they felt closer to their community. So we've done the same kind of studies in the U.S. We've done in churches and taken blood before and after services. We've gone to folk dances and taken blood before and after dances. We've had soldiers march and we've taken their blood. We've gone to sports teams and taken their blood before and after warm-up. So we're really finding that the underlying mechanism that brings humans together is oxytocin. And when I release oxytocin, I have a sense of empathy, a sense of emotional connection, and it's that mechanism that drives us to be moral. Right? If I care about how Ryan feels, it's very hard for me to treat him badly. So I'm plugged into his feelings. If I treat him badly, I cause him pain, I'm going to feel that pain, and I don't like pain. Right? On the flip side, if I treat him well, and he's joyful, I need to share that joy. So we tend to do that. But as I say, if Ryan gets in my face, I'm not going to get back in his face. So we go with the golden rule, with the anti-golden rule too. You play that with me, I'll play that with you. I have to do that as well. And by the way, testosterone for guys makes it feel really good to play that. We dig it. I don't know why. So back to the experiments, women have a kind of less hot physiological response when people don't cooperate with them. They report they're disappointed, they're not happy, but they don't have this spike of testosterone. Some of them do, they're from New Jersey, the rest don't. My wife's from New Jersey, I can say that. But most women have this kind of cool response, like, you know what, was it cool? They cooperate with me, I'm going to move on. So I think it tells us that women, they make much better negotiators than men. I don't think this personally. And it's mostly guys, again, outside of New Jersey, who are chasing people down and giving them gestures on the freeway when you get cut off. They want to enforce the rules. But the bulk of the U.S. military, active military, is made up of males. They might go and step up. It's okay. I think you can't study neuroscience without having a real appreciation for how individual brains are different in a sense of tolerance. We're all different. The way that we all have pluses and minuses, and we should accept that. But I think one of the mechanisms that seems to be almost universal is oxytocin release. You're nice to me, I'm going to be nice to you, and I can kind of get into your head, I can feel what you're feeling. And once I do that, the whole world works nicely. If that were true, by the way, we should find some evidence for that. Right? You should put on your PS detector. Oh, gee, it smells awful. How do we really know it's true? Well, in the book, we actually generate some very interesting evidence for these cross-country effects. So this is what the neuroscience suggests. You release oxytocin, you feel empathy. When you feel empathy, you behave in these socially appropriate ways that we call moral, including things like trusting others. And I showed in the late 1990s that at the level of countries, measures of interpersonal trust were the strongest predictors economists have ever found of which countries will be prosperous and which countries are poor. So prosperous countries, rich countries are high trust countries, and poor countries are low trust countries. Why, when trust is low, you have to go through someone's friend to vouch for you, and lots of transactions and lawyers and all that. When trust is high, you can shake hands, do a deal, boom. Right? So trust facilitates economic transactions that create wealth, create jobs, reduce poverty, this positive feedback, this virtuous cycle. As you reduce poverty, what happens? You have fewer and fewer people who have the survival stress and inhibits oxytocin release. You have the luxury of connecting to other people, releasing oxytocin, and the circle continues. I think that's why, in many cases, kind of good governance that we've seen in Western countries has been sustained for so many hundreds of years in many cases. And you can unwind this pretty quickly. We have lots of countries that have done that. But what's it mean when I'm in the virtuous cycle? It also means that I have much higher tolerance for people different than me, big integration of tolerance. I have greater happiness, strong ingredient for happiness, and I have higher trust. So if we want to build societies in which people are happy, tolerant, trusting, prosperous, we need to harness the power of oxytocin by building this into everything we're doing. So a very simple example. Who thinks that both people running for president are just bad enough breakdowns? Yeah, 0 hands. Because there's too little transparency, there's too little accountability. So you can affect that in your own lives. When you are transparent about your motives, when you are clear about your intentions, then people are much more likely to trust you and respond positively to you. If you're heading them home and you're not making eye contact with people, who knows what you're going to do? So you can apply this in a very simple way. And in fact, we have found in experiments, individuals who release the most oxytocin, for example, when they're trusted, are in fact happier in their own lives. And why are they happier? They have better romantic relationships, they're closer to their family, they have more close friends, and they even share more money with a stranger in their laboratory tests. So at every level, they're connecting better to people around them. So it's people that make us happy. And unhappy as well, by the way. People can make you really unhappy. But when you build these positive relationships, you can really be happier. So, how do I know? Not only from laboratory experiments, but from my own personal life. So, I'm an introvert. Introverts? Yes. So, we're not shy people, but we like our private time. And I started with this research. I thought, I really need to make a better effort to connect to people around me. So I'm always the first subject for all my experiments. Any experiment I do it to myself first to make sure it's ethical and appropriate. And, if I'm not willing to do it to myself, I'll share it to anybody else. So we did this work a couple of years ago on the role of touch. So the experiment was you came in, you had a blood draw, either got a 15-minute back massage from a massage therapist, or you rested quietly in a room, and then the blood draw, and then you do the shared interaction you guys did. And in fact, people who were touched, and then someone shared money with them, were so much more generous than people who were not touched, because they're all still so much better. So, how do we apply that? So, the experiment on me was, I'm just going to try helping everybody. We're refusing the handshakes. Anyone I met today will confirm that I don't shake hands. I'm not germophobic. I just think I want to connect to people around me. So as a little experiment, I started doing this. And a couple years ago, a reporter from Fast Company magazine, Adam Penberg, who lives here in New York City, came out to the lab for a couple days to do a story on me. And I said, hey, before you go, I'm going to give you a hug, because that's what I do, I'm a connection guy. And the students in my lab gave me this nickname, Dr. Love. And anyway, he heard that, and so he outs me as Dr. Love, Fast Company. And at first I was kind of unhappy about that. I'm a serious guy. You can see that. And I started thinking, what better thing can I do in the world than to encourage people to be more loving towards each other? So, I have 2 suggestions for you. Number 1, 8 hugs a day. So your first prescription from Dr. Love is 8 hugs a day. So once an hour while you're out of the house, just give me a hug. Oh, I've seen it already. So just like this molecule of care and love, you're going to release oxytocin to the person you give the hug to. And guess what? Their brain releases oxytocin, and now, for about 30 minutes, they are feeling more comfortable, more socially connected. They're going to be next to someone else, and you just start the virtuous cycle. Okay, so you guys can do it yourselves. You can create a much happier, better world. So, second prescription, I know it's New York. We actually held something called Love Night in New York last summer, actually. We had 500 New Yorkers come in and have a bunch of activities, including pecking each other. Killed. So even in New York, this works, you guys. All right. So, second suggestion is feel empowered to use the L word. Right? There's real biology behind the word love. And I don't mean romantic love in general, I mean philia. I mean the care for other people. Right? So tell someone you work with, tell your roommate, certainly tell your spouse, I love you. By that I mean, I really care about you. I'm willing to put in time and resources to make sure you're happy as possible. And I want you to know that. And once you say that, it's very hard for the person you're talking to to say, you know what? I really want you to. So if you won't start that cycle, it's not going to start. So I want you guys to be empowered just to start that cycle. It's okay. It's just biology. It's our human biology. Really wants to be sensitive to that. And I think we should embrace it. We shouldn't be afraid of it. Love's okay. All right, that's the synopsis of the book. Lots more in there on the role of religion, the role of pathology, you know, where all the bad behavior comes from, where evil comes from. Even stories on why I spent 10 years of my life trying to figure out if we have a raw molecule. It's a really good research question, but the honest answer is I had a really interesting and weird childhood. My mother is a former nun, and believe me, I had roundly shoved down my throat. As a child, I really rejected that. I wondered, you know, could there be this biological basis, a terrestrial basis for ground that doesn't rely on a God in our life? I have no idea if God exists or not. It's not my place to say that. But from a scientific perspective, we have just an abundance of experiments showing that we need to connect, we want to connect. And as soon as we start that connection process, we start this virtuous cycle. So it's not so hard. But you guys, how about some questions? Thank you for showing up and let's interact a little bit. Yes.
Well, just like the moment.
Yeah, so a little funny story.
Well, can you repeat the question?
So the question is, why don't we spike the water? So we have this outsourcing paper, and again, this was 10 years ago. It was very basic research, and now we're involved in lots of clinical trials because it's clear that people with impaired social behaviors might benefit from infusing oxytocin. So when we first published the first oxytocin infusion paper in 2005, I had this phone call. I'm taking my kids to school. Reporters calling me, and can you come to New York tomorrow? I'm like, who is this? Oh, Good Morning America. Yeah. So I have plans tomorrow, but I guess I can. Anyway, so all the TV shows, and that was the question people always asked, well, I could just spit in the air. Salesmen can do this, and politicians. Great. Except what? Well, first of all, illegal, unethical, sure. One. Number two, context matters a ton. So in these experiments where we cause the brain to release oxytocin or we shoot the brain pharmacologically, if I stress you out or if I put you in front of the Ryans, the scary people, you're going to suppress that whole safety signal. So the oxytocin is kind of a signal, familiarity signal. Yeah, give us a love. I'll help you over that. Right, it says, here's a safe human. You might not recognize this human, but you can treat this human like family. So again, I think the triumph of the is that this molecule that evolved to motivate us to care for offspring, also now we're treating strangers like family. And from that, we get so much value, not just happiness, but all kinds of value. So if I induce oxytocin release by knocking you or by giving you a drug, again, you can always suppress that. So we do find in our experiments where we infuse oxytocin, something like 10% of people don't seem to have an effect. They're not psychopaths, they're not stressed out, they have the blood. They're just not dealing with the signal for whatever reason. They may not have enough oxytocin receptors. One kid in the debriefing statement said, my student loan was really late, so I kept all the money. It's kind of good logic, right? He's not, instead of being sharing and relaxed, he's kind of stressed, and that's all right. So, I think it's hugs, not drugs, the point of grace. There's a question in the back. Yes, sir.
So, well, you looked at interactions between people, and then you extrapolate how you see the abilities for society as a whole. I'm wondering, what you work with, can you look at all of that, and in an inanimate object or an entity, nonetheless have some kind of connection? And I'm thinking, we should try to build relationships with these brands.
With brands. So because of this hyperactive connection system, we do anthropomorphize essentially anything that we see moving, we have a relationship with. Who's named our car? Come on, hands up, yeah. Why? Because it's moving. So there's this classic study in the 30s, early 40s in psychology where you have moving balls and triangles. And you ask people to describe them, they all say, oh, the big ball's chasing the little ball. It's mean because it's hitting it, and it's just geometric shapes. So it does suggest that we can build relationships with brands if they have the social content. So in all kinds of control tasks for experiments, where there's no social content, we don't release oxytocin. I think this is an equation for brand love. I love that band because I have so much experience with it, because I'm learning about it, I'm understanding, building a relationship with it. If it moves, it's better. So here's an example. Hand lotion. Boring ad. Hand lotion. Much more interesting ad. Now I have movement, I have a relationship, I'm getting touch. I know how touch feels. Right? Even better if someone else is touching me. Right? So anything that engages this kind of social content, I think we're going to build a relationship with. Pets. Pets are great. Babies are the world's best oxytocin releasers ever. Why? Because if they don't get the parents release oxytocin, they're going to get cared for. So yeah, babies, puppies for sure. We've got to be able to look at commercials now. Yeah, so I think we're predisposed to build relationships. And we did a survey, a consumer survey a couple years ago. We actually used the word love to see if people could process that and describe it with brands, whether to Frito-Lay, whether to Google, whether to all other kinds. And sure enough, people got that. It strongly predicted, the word love strongly predicted when people would be loyal customers, if they would pay more for the product. So all these kind of things that you want to induce people to do by giving them the product experience, the information about the product, and then advertising. So I think, yeah, we're predisposed to have those relationships. Probably harder for dog food unless you have a puppy in it. Right? So social content's going to be key. I think you know that already. Something that's flat, two-dimensional, it's much harder to get away with that. Yeah, great question. By the way, I should say, one of my graduate students, Mark Gray Wallace here, and we did work recently on, or she did work, helped a little bit, on looking at public service ads. And we did a couple experiments of public service ads. But the punchline is, if we raise oxytocin pharmacologically, people attend more to the ad, they're more engaged in the characters of the ad, and they donated more money to the cause shown in the ad. It's substantially more elegant. So, having this sort of dramatic arc of the video showed at the beginning, having this sense of connection to the ad, even in a 30-second commercial or an online advertisement, if I'm sucked into the story, there's some characters that I can see this out as being part of, I would be sucked into the brand. That's and I should say, this is what we're doing with the federal government. I read recently that something like 85% of Pakistanis view the U.S. as and yet we spend billions and billions of dollars in Pakistan. So clearly we're not engaging with the right message. When we see them as allies, what as many of us do. So, how we craft those messages more effectively, the claim is we can do it better if we use neuroscience. Yes, ma'am.
So would you say bullying is a symptom of too much testosterone?
Bullying. I don't know about bullying. It could be. What you hear is that bullies are insecure, they want attention. It's like children, so I have to pass it along.
It becomes a real social thing, though, where, the mean girls idea or the way some people.
Could be. We are very adaptable. So here at Culture Relaxed, people are happy and calm. But if I pop you into Kabul or Mexico City or Peru, your whole physiology changes, right? These are less safe places. They're foreign to you, you behave differently. So if everyone around me is beginning to bad behavior, I won't engage in bad behavior. That's what the humans here are doing. So if bullying is the norm is among these individuals, and I want to be part of that group, I'm going to bully. So we see the same thing with hazing and fraternities, right? So again, we're herd creatures, we're going to follow the lead, and I think it's important to understand that one individual can do something different and kind of start that system up. We have a strong features towards care, towards compassion, towards cooperation. It's not always going to kick in. So it's a balancing act in our brains. We're going to balance the kind of fear aggression with the care connection system. And how we balance that varies second to second, varies across individuals. Yes, sir.
Sort of related to what Rob was asking, you look at predisposition. So if someone is predisposed to believe that to not like something, what's the arc that makes them, that lets the oxygen whatever release and makes them sort of get to a more likable place?
Right, so predisposition doesn't matter. Yes, in fact, memories matter a lot. So oxytocin receptors are very active in the brains that process social memory. So it gives you this social recognition. So I've seen Ryan over and over and over, great guy. I don't need to release much oxytocin because I've already set up those brain circuits for my, my Ryan detector. And so We've done experiments in which we make one group more salient than others. We don't make the other group scary, we just make your group really salient. So, for example, we had religious people come to lab and worship the lab. And worship is a pretty oxytocin in the majority of people, not everybody. And then we let them really share the running tasks. And we have, you're in the blue group, you're in the red group. And so the blue group all worship together. They benefit themselves. Soldiers do the same thing after they march, make their group salient. So once that new group is salient, yeah, it's not like oxytocin makes you this, worked out, love everybody, type. You're just modulating your environment. So, if I make that out group scary or separate from you, I'm not going to change the behavior much. But I think what's interesting is that because these experiments work in a very disembodied way, you're interacting by computer. People are really in the lab, but you're interacting by computer, which sometimes at a distance. You could have benefit of charity if you want to. And we are torturing you. We're taking your blood or we're putting a drug up your nose. And so, you really earn the money. And people are still willingly giving it up. And it does mean that we can potentially connect with everybody else in the world. That there's no necessary limit on people we know or someone who's friended us or whatever. We don't need the thumbs up from our family or friends to be able to connect to other people. And I'll give you an anecdotal evidence of that. This Papua New Guinea experiment, this is like the FUBAR experiment. Like the regulators didn't work on the generators, so the my centrifuge started burning up. We ran out of liquid nitrogen. There was no services in Papua New Guinea. There's no liquid nitrogen, there's no dry ice, I'm going to lose my blood samples. Basically, I lost a bunch of days just trying to, even though I brought in here all the equipment I thought I needed, there were failures. So I'm just stuck in this little village. It's 1,000 people, and this is a rainforest where it's just mud all the time. And cell phone service, I should tell you about that. A little Jamaican company that provides cell phone services to poor little island nations. Digicel, fabulous company, I love them. So all I have is my phone, basically, I have no charger. So that's it. So what do? For the other people in the village, I just sat down on that grassy hillside and just walked. There's only 50 huts. I saw all those. I saw their sacred places where they did their rituals. And some guys are gambling. I was hanging out with guys, watching them gamble. I don't speak the language, obviously. And then within about 20 minutes, all of a sudden, some village people are sitting next to me. And then, there's 60, 70, 80 people. So close, touching me, and they want to hold my hand. There's no running water. And I brought food with me, so I could think, oh my God, Purell. And then I thought, what an absolute jerk I am. Now, these people are letting me come into their homes, come to the village, come to their sacred areas, and I'm going to be complaining because they smell bad or their hands are dirty. And I just kind of relaxed. All of a sudden, I had such a good time. And I think of them as my village. In fact, my chief has a cell phone. My chief speaks some English with a fifth grade school of fifth grade, which is unusual. And he calls me up occasionally. Hey, gonna come back, bring some tourists with you, whatever. So, if I can connect to people in the rainforest of Papua New Guinea, the people in the yard, they shouldn't be that hard to connect. So we're biased towards connecting. I think that's kind of one of the new insights from this work is that we have a strong bias towards connection, towards compassion, towards cooperation. And if we harness that, then we'd be much better off all of us. And we're doing it, all the time anyway, intuitively. I actually think the science behind it is we do it in a much more effective way. Yeah, great question. Maybe two more? One more? Yeah. Hi.
So I think you've made a quick nod to it before, but in what way do you see this role? We all know how important it is for human connection when an infant's born and during those formative years. Is it purely oxytocin what you're talking about now that's the key to that, or is there other factors as well?
Right, so the question is, what about raising kids and the role of oxytocin? So again, oxytocin is responsible for that hallmark of animals, which is life, birth, and care for offspring. And from the kid's perspective, the more nurturing they get, the more this care nurturing system develops in them. So we do know that when children are abandoned or neglected, they tend not to be able to form good quality adult relationships. They just don't have the kind of mental machinery. So I think one of the take homes is what do kids really need? Most of IQ is genetic. By the way, about 2/3 of your adult IQ is genetic. So by then less than genetics, great, but feed them enough, give them a lot of love. So I really don't think it can spoil kids. So here's a practical example from the book. I have little kids, and so we do the classic timeout. You misbehaving, get timeout. I started thinking of the neuroscience of that. That makes no sense at all. Timeout says, you're like a prisoner. You're misbehaving, we don't want to be around you, which is stressful. So I invented instead the time in, which says, you're having a bad day, you need to sit in my lap for as many minutes as you are old. So this works great. My 9-year-old loves it. She loves to sit in my lap and be held and be comforted. And my 13-year-old is scared to death I'll do this with her parent or friend's room. So again, I think it's, what we really need is connection. What children need is connection. Do we punish our children? Sure we do. We punish them because they engage behaviors that we know are going to be long-term maladaptive for them. Right? If you're a spoiled brat, if you're misbehaving, you can be separated out from your social group. People are not going to be around you. You'll be around. So, if that's happening, then you need to kind of get in the bud now. So same thing at work. So Val and I were talking, right? So telling people I work with, I tell them I love them. And they know what it means in the philia sense. Okay, I really care about honestly you being successful. And maybe you're successful here, maybe you're successful somewhere else. That's okay. I care about you as a human being. I want this to be a great experience, the 8 hours or 10 hours you're here at work. It's hard, work's hard. But you know what? I can fear you into working, but people give up. So, if I'm using fear to motivate you, eventually you're like, whatever, and I'll scream at me again. But you'll die for people you love. And if you love Val, you will work till midnight on that project. Because she needs you to do it, and she cares about you, and she's looking out for you, and she wants you to be successful. That's the kind of workplace I try to create with my work. Doing a lot of work with companies now, by the way, helping them harness this power to build workplaces where people are really engaged, really happy, really productive, and profits are higher, turnover's lower, lots of good outcome measures. So again, I think that wouldn't work if it was a foreign imposition. It was forcing you to do something your brain was already designed to do. So with your kids, it wouldn't work. But we are designed to care and nurture. It's okay, just accept that. That's great. Doesn't mean I don't fire people. I have 35-person lab. I fire people all the time. But a lot of times when I fire them, they're happy. They're relieved because it's not good for them either. They know it. It's all right. You can do it usually in a nice way. Yeah, last question.
Is there any work being done about the kinds of connections that most of us engage in today that are not high touch? So what I would call high touch. So my Facebook connections or my tweet or the kinds of things a brand would do or a person would do that they could be transparent but are not high touch or as I call it.
Yeah.
Are there studies being done now about that kind of stuff and how they relate to this kind of work?
Perfect. So we've done 3 small studies now on people using social media. So here's an experiment. Get a blood draw, use 15 minutes of social media in private. If you want to do tweet, post Facebook, get another blood draw, you tell us how you feel. Completely private. So we've done this for a number of media outlets. And 100% of people have really oxytocin using social media. So I think it's like the gentleman behind you said, we're so predisposed to connecting that our brains, just like on these video images we give you, we don't really differentiate between a flickering image on a screen and this narrative story to the person standing in front of me. So a great example of that is we ran with these experiments for Korean TV stations on Korea. So about the reporters and producers, they all were participants in the experiment. So I got the blood analysis back, and I wrote a report to these guys, and they cleared on the air. And everyone, in all these experiments, you get sort of a 10 to 15% increase in oxytocin. People feel closer, they feel connected. Right? This one kid in the experiment, this producer, probably was 22 years old. He had a 150% spike in oxytocin. And he's using social media in private, I don't always do it, but I wrote the report and I said, look, my guess was he's interacting with his mother or his girlfriend. So just like in the wedding example, the anatomical release tells us about the strength of the ties between individuals. They checked. He was posting to his girlfriend's Facebook page. But his brain saw this and said, this girlfriend were the real husband. So I think for the business you're in, you guys can rock this because those are real connections. From the brain's perspective, online, narrative, written, I'm all getting sucked into this kind of anthropomorphizing the on-screen situation to an actual physical interaction. But that's, that's what we cry at movies. And so we're sad when we finish that long novel, right? Oh my gosh, the dog died at the end, or whatever, right? Because we can't help but fit into other people's brains. And osteosis is the way we do that emotionally. And once we do that, again, our chemistry has changed. We tend to be nicer people. By the way, you can do the opposite. I can show you violent video game. There's good evidence that for teenagers in particular produces violent behavior outside of video games. It's the same thing. First-person shooter games, I feel like I'm in there, and I'm going to carry it over. I've changed my brain chemistry. So, if you want to work on the fear margin in advertising, you can do that too, or react the same way. Okay, so we have one more little task for you before we finish. Since you all were so wonderful, and people at George are so wonderful, we have 5 copies of the moral molecule hidden in the couches and chairs in the first 3 rows. So if you feel around your pillows, please see if you can find one of those 5 copies. I'm going to sign them all before you go. But if you find a copy, you don't get to keep it. You need to give it to somebody next to you. That's there. Look around, right here. There's one. Oh, Ryan got one. Okay? Oh, Ryan, sorry. Which one you're Ryan? Because you're a great guy. Yeah. We find 5. We have 5. Okay. There's really 5. There you got it. Okay, guys got it. So you have to give them away. If you give them away, we'll replace them with another 5 books. Okay, so give somebody 5, and you'll get back. And they'll have what we want. Thank you guys so much for coming.